A girl begins to change after a weekend in a luxurious mansion, and silent signs go unnoticed, until a simple question reveals something no one was prepared to hear. Lisa was putting books in her backpack while observing the movement in the courtyard of Horizon Academy. Even after 3 years studying there, she still felt like a visitor in that environment of polished marble and impeccable uniforms. The bell rang, announcing the end of classes that Friday. Beside her, Isabella Walker adjusted her perfect bangs and smiled, revealing braces with pink elastics. "So, have you talked to your mom about tomorrow?" asked Isabella, with that melodious voice that automatically made all the teachers smile. Lisa swallowed hard. She still couldn't believe she had been invited for the weekend at the Walker mansion. Isabella was the most popular girl in the class, daughter of Edward Walker, owner of Walker Cosmetics and one of the richest men in Lakeside. The party would be small, just for a few selected students, and for some inexplicable reason, Lisa was on the list. "Not yet," she replied, zipping up her backpack, "but I'll talk to her today." Isabella smiled even wider. "Great. Dad hired an amazing DJ, and the heated pool is already ready. It's going to be awesome." Lisa just nodded, trying to appear enthusiastic. In reality, she was nervous. Her house in the Riverside neighborhood was simple, nothing compared to the mansions where her classmates lived. Her mom, Patricia, worked as an administrative manager at a network of medical clinics and saved every penny to keep her at that school. A partial scholarship helped, but the effort was still significant. Leaving school, Lisa spotted her mom's car parked at the corner. Patricia always waited for her on Fridays, the only day she could leave work early. She was a 38-year-old woman with a warm smile and permanent dark circles that not even the best concealer from Walker Cosmetics could hide. "How was your day, honey?" asked Patricia, starting the car. Lisa took a deep breath. "It was good. Mom, there's something. Isabella invited me to spend the weekend at her house. There's going to be a small party, just for a few people from class." Patricia was silent for a few seconds. Her fingers drummed on the steering wheel while waiting for the light to turn green. "Isabella, Edward Walker's daughter," Lisa confirmed with a nod. "It's going to be tomorrow and Sunday. Her mum will send someone to pick everyone up in the morning and take us back Sunday night." Patricia frowned. She knew the Walkers' reputation. Influential people, the kind who sponsored charity events while paying minimum wages to their employees. But she also knew how hard it was for Lisa to fit in at that school. Her daughter was intelligent, responsible, but always had difficulty making friends. "Who else is going?" she asked, turning the corner toward the Riverside neighborhood. "Mandy, Bethany, Sophie, and Caroline," Lisa enumerated. "It's just 6 girls counting me and Isabella." Patricia knew the names. Daughters of doctors, businessmen, people from Lakeside's high society. She felt that familiar pang of inadequacy that always struck her when thinking about the world her daughter needed to navigate. And will there be adult supervision? Will her parents be there? "Yes, of course," Lisa responded quickly. "Her mom organizes everything, and there are the staff too. It's super safe." Patricia stopped the car at a red light and looked at her daughter. Lisa had that gleam in her eyes, a mixture of hope and anxiety. It was rare to see her like this, so excited about something social. "All right," she finally said. "You can go." Lisa's face lit up. "Really? Thank you, Mom. But send me messages, and if you need anything at all, call me immediately, and I'll come pick you up no matter what time it is." Lisa agreed enthusiastically, already typing a message to Isabella. The rest of the evening was a whirlwind of preparations. What to bring? What to wear? Patricia observed her daughter with a mixture of joy and apprehension. It was good to see her excited, but something in her maternal instinct sounded a silent alarm. On Saturday morning, a black van parked in front of the modest apartment building where they lived. The driver, a man in a suit and dark glasses, confirmed Lisa's name and opened the door. Inside, Mandy and Caroline were already settled, both with designer bags and bored expressions that transformed into polite smiles when Lisa entered. Patricia helped her daughter with her backpack and leaned in to give her a kiss on the forehead. "Have fun, but be careful, okay?" "Okay, Mom. No need to worry." The van departed, leaving Patricia with that strange feeling in her chest, as if she had forgotten to say something important. She watched the vehicle turn the corner and sighed. She was being paranoid. Lisa deserved this moment of fun with her classmates. The Walker Mansion was located on the outskirts of Lakeside in an exclusive gated community where each property was separated by acres of impeccable gardens. When the van passed through the Golden Gates, Lisa couldn't contain a soft wow. The main house looked like something out of a movie, with imposing columns, large windows, and a circular fountain at the entrance. Isabella was waiting at the door, wearing a light blue dress that perfectly matched the Olympic-sized pool visible in the background. Next to her, a tall woman with blonde hair and flawless makeup smiled with perfectly aligned teeth. "Welcome, girls," exclaimed Isabella, waving enthusiastically. "We're going to have the best weekend ever." The blonde woman, who Lisa assumed was Isabella's mother, gave a brief smile and gestured for them to enter. "The maids will show you to your rooms. Lunch will be served in an hour, and afterward you can enjoy the pool." The interior of the mansion was even more impressive. Marble floors, artwork on the walls, furniture that looked like it had never been used. Lisa followed a uniformed maid to a room on the second floor, where a king-size bed was impeccably made. "The bathroom is there," indicated the maid in a monotone voice. "Clean towels in the cabinets. Anything you need, use the intercom." Alone in the room, Lisa sat on the soft bed and took a deep breath. She was really there, in the Walker Mansion, invited for an exclusive weekend. For a moment she felt special, as if she was finally being accepted into that world she had always observed from a distance. Little did she know that at that very moment, Edward Walker was talking with his wife Elizabeth in the office downstairs, with worried expressions as they discussed problems with the hot tub and the need to keep up appearances until the inspector's visit next week. And so, as Lisa arranged her simple things in the luxurious room, invisible gears were already moving, setting the stage for a weekend that would change her life forever. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. Lunch was served in the winter garden, under a glass roof that let in sunlight while keeping the environment perfectly climate-controlled. Lisa watched, fascinated, the details of the table set with imported china and silver cutlery. The other girls chatted animatedly, as if they were accustomed to all that luxury. "My dad just installed a new hot tub near the pool," commented Isabella, while a maid served fruit juice in crystal glasses. "It's amazing. It has lights that change color and super powerful jets." Mandy, daughter of a famous plastic surgeon, rolled her eyes. "My dad says hot tubs are bacteria nests if they're not properly maintained." "Ours is spotless," retorted Isabella, with a touch of irritation in her voice. "Dad hired a specialized company from Chicago that comes to do maintenance every week." Lisa noticed a quick exchange of glances between two maids serving the table. One of them, a middle-aged woman with a tired expression, slightly furrowed her brow before returning to a neutral posture. Lunch proceeded with conversations about clothes, international trips, and school gossip. Lisa remained quiet most of the time, responding only when someone directed a question directly at her. She felt like an intruder observing a world to which she didn't belong. After dessert, Isabella announced it was time to enjoy the pool. The girls went upstairs to change, and Lisa put on her simple one-piece swimsuit, suddenly feeling insecure next to her classmates' brand-name bikinis. The outdoor area was stunning. The Olympic pool had crystal-clear water, and next to it was the famous hot tub, a wide circle of dark blue tiles with marble edges. Staff circulated discreetly, serving juices and snacks while a DJ set up equipment for later. "Let's test the hot tub first," suggested Isabella, throwing a towel over a lounge chair. "The water's nice and warm." The girls agreed enthusiastically. Lisa hesitated for a moment, but followed the group. As she approached the hot tub, she noticed something strange about the water. There was a slightly cloudy coloration, almost imperceptible, and a subtle smell that didn't seem normal. "The water seems a bit strange, doesn't it?" she commented timidly, while the others were already getting in. Isabella frowned. "It's the special treatment Dad had put in. It has mineral salts imported from France. Costs a fortune." "Oh, I see," murmured Lisa, feeling foolish for having questioned it. Caroline pulled her arm. "Come on, Lisa. It feels delicious." Reluctantly, Lisa entered the water. The heat was pleasant, but there was something about the texture that bothered her. The strong jets created a whitish foam on the surface, partially masking the cloudiness she had noticed. After a few minutes, Lisa began to feel a slight burning on her skin. Discreetly, she tried to check if there was any redness on her arms, but the colored lights of the hot tub made it difficult to notice any changes. "Don't you think the water is kind of burning?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Bethany, who was beside her, shrugged. "That's normal. It's the salts. They exfoliate the skin. Super good for circulation." Lisa wasn't convinced, but she didn't want to insist on the subject. Maybe it was just her lack of experience with luxury hot tubs. She stayed in the water, trying to have fun like the others, but the feeling of discomfort increased. After almost half an hour, she couldn't take it anymore. "I'm going to take a dip in the pool," she announced, getting out of the hot tub. No one seemed to notice her departure, engrossed as they were in a conversation about Mandy's next trip to Paris. Upon leaving the water, Lisa noticed her skin was reddened, especially on her thighs and stomach. She felt slightly dizzy and decided to sit on a lounge chair in the shade. That's when she noticed the same middle-aged woman who had served lunch, now arranging towels near the pool area. The woman cast a concerned look at Lisa. "Everything okay, girl?" she asked in a low voice, approaching as if she didn't want to draw attention. "Yes, just a little dizzy," replied Lisa. The woman quickly looked around, as if checking if anyone was watching. "Better not stay too long in that water," she murmured, almost inaudibly before quickly moving away when Elizabeth Walker appeared on the patio. Lisa was intrigued by the comment, but her attention was diverted when Isabella and the other girls got out of the hot tub and headed to the pool. Fighting against the discomfort, Lisa joined them, hoping the cool water of the pool would alleviate the burning sensation. The afternoon passed with swimming, loud music, and selfies. No one seemed to notice that Lisa avoided going back to the hot tub. When the sun began to set, the girls were told to get ready for dinner. In the shower, Lisa noticed that the redness on her skin had worsened, and small blisters were beginning to form in some places. She felt a knot in her stomach, but decided not to say anything. She didn't want to ruin the weekend or seem too fragile in front of the others. She put on long pants and a long-sleeved shirt, despite the heat, to hide the marks. During dinner, she had difficulty eating. Her throat burned slightly, and her stomach seemed upset. Isabella gave her curious looks a few times, but Lisa forced smiles and pretended everything was fine. Later, when everyone went to the home theater to watch a movie, Lisa excused herself to go to the bathroom. In the hallway, she encountered the towel lady again. "You're not feeling well, are you?" asked the woman with a worried voice. Lisa hesitated but nodded. "My name is Mrs. Zelda. I've worked here for almost 20 years, said the woman, nervously looking around. "That hot tub isn't good. I've already told Mr. Walker, but he says it's my imagination. Last week the technician came, looked, but didn't really do anything." "What's wrong with it?" asked Lisa, feeling her heart race. "I don't know exactly, but I know it's not normal. The water stays strange even after changing it, and it's not the first time I've seen people get sick afterward. But nobody listens to me. I'm just the maid." Before they could continue the conversation, they heard footsteps. Mrs. Zelda quickly moved away, pretending to clean a vase, as Elizabeth Walker appeared in the hallway. "Is everything okay, Lisa?" she asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The girls are waiting for you to start the movie." "Yes, I just needed to use the bathroom," replied Lisa, trying not to show her discomfort. Elizabeth briefly looked at Mrs. Zelda, who kept her head down. "Zelda, I think you can go home now. You've already worked past your hours." The woman nodded silently and left, not without casting a final, meaningful look at Lisa. That night was difficult. During the movie, Lisa felt chills and her skin seemed to be on fire. She managed to hide it, but when she finally retired to her room, the fever was evident. She thought about calling her mum, but it was almost 2 in the morning, and she didn't want to worry her. Besides, how would she explain that she suspected the Walkers' luxury hot tub was contaminated? No one would believe her. On Sunday, she woke up feeling even worse. She had to make an enormous effort to get up and join the others for breakfast. Isabella proposed another hot tub session before lunch, and Lisa made up an excuse about being on her period. The others accepted the explanation without questioning. When Patricia arrived to pick up her daughter on Sunday night, Lisa had already put up her facade. She smiled, thanked Isabella and her parents, and got into the car with her backpack casually thrown over her shoulders. Only after they had moved away from the golden gates of the mansion did she allow her face to show the fatigue and pain she felt. "Was it fun?" asked Patricia, looking at her daughter attentively. "It was tiring," replied Lisa, resting her head against the window. "I just want to sleep now." Patricia noticed the paleness on her daughter's face, the way she curled up in the seat. Her maternal instinct sounded an alarm, but she decided not to push at that moment. "All right, sweetheart, let's go home." What Patricia didn't know was that that night would be just the beginning of a battle that would test not only Lisa's health, but the strength of the bond between mother and daughter, and the courage of both to face a system determined to silence them. In the days that followed, Patricia observed subtle changes in Lisa. The girl, normally punctual and organized, began to be late for school. Her favorite blouses were replaced by looser and longer pieces, even with the intense November heat in Lakeside. During meals, she played with the food on her plate, but ate less and less. "Not hungry?" asked Patricia on a Wednesday night, as Lisa pushed rice from one side to the other. "Not really," replied the girl without raising her eyes. "I had a snack at school." Patricia frowned. Lisa had never been one to eat much, but she had always maintained a healthy relationship with food. Something was different. It wasn't just the lack of appetite, but a change in posture, in her gaze, in the energy that emanated from her. "How are things at school? And Isabella?" She tried again, looking for some clue about what might be happening. Lisa shrugged. "Normal, she's busy with preparations for her 15th birthday party." There was no elaboration, no animated stories like before. Just short answers, almost monosyllabic. Patricia decided to give her daughter space, imagining it might just be a phase, perhaps the early onset of adolescence. The next morning, while preparing breakfast, Patricia noticed Lisa in the bathroom, the door ajar. The girl was lifting her shirt and examining her stomach in the mirror, running her fingers over reddish spots that seemed to be spreading across her skin. When she realized she was being observed, she quickly pulled her shirt down and closed the door. That gesture lit a definitive alert in Patricia. During the day at work, she couldn't concentrate. She called the school and asked to speak with teacher Jennifer, responsible for Lisa's class. The secretary informed her that the teacher would only be available the next day, during her parent conference hours. Jennifer Oliveira was known for her dedication and sensitivity. At 40, with 15 years of teaching, she knew how to recognize signs of problems even when children tried to hide them. She received Patricia in her simple office, decorated with student work and colorful posters about American literature. "I've also noticed changes in Lisa," confirmed the teacher after hearing Patricia's concerns. "She's always been reserved, but participative. In recent weeks, she's isolated herself even more. She doesn't complete exercises and doesn't raise her hand to answer, even when I know she knows the answer." "This started after that weekend at Isabella's house," said Patricia, mentally connecting the dots. Jennifer nodded. "I noticed something interesting yesterday during an art activity. I asked them to draw an unforgettable weekend. Most drew beaches, amusement parks, happy things. Lisa drew a huge pool surrounded by trees and a black figure in the background without a face. A chill ran down Patricia's spine. That doesn't seem normal to me. I agree. And there's more. Last week, she dropped a crumpled note. It said, "We shouldn't have gotten in." When I tried to ask about it, she completely shut down. Patricia felt her heart tighten. Something had happened that weekend, something her daughter couldn't or wouldn't tell. "I think we should involve the school counselor," suggested Jennifer. "Maybe a school psychologist could help Lisa open up." The meeting with the counselor was scheduled for the next week. Cynthia Miller, the coordinator, a woman with a severe expression and always impeccable business attire, received Patricia and Jennifer with formal politeness, but without genuine interest. "Mrs. Almeida, I understand your concern, but adolescents, even the youngest ones like Lisa, go through phases. Behavioral changes are common at this age," said Cynthia, in a tone that suggested she was just repeating a prepared speech. "My daughter is 12 years old, not a teenager yet," countered Patricia, "and the changes were abrupt after a specific event." The coordinator adjusted her glasses and leafed through Lisa's folder on the desk. "Her school records continue to be excellent. Above average grades, no disciplinary issues. This doesn't seem like a problem that requires institutional intervention." Jennifer leaned forward. "Cynthia, You don't see the girl every day like I do. She's different. She's lost the sparkle in her eyes. Something happened." "And what exactly are you suggesting, Jennifer?" asked the coordinator with a touch of impatience. "That something inappropriate happened at the Walker house. One of the most respectable families in this town, sponsors of our scholarship program." The tone made it clear that the Walker name carried weight in that institution. Patricia felt a knot in her stomach. "I just want to understand what's happening with my daughter," she said, trying to keep her voice firm. "If she's suffering, I need to know why." Cynthia sighed. "Mrs. Almeida, with all due respect, sometimes we, mothers, especially single mothers, can be a bit hypersensitive. It's natural to want to protect our children, but we also need to let them grow, face small social disappointments." Patricia felt her blood boil at the condescension, but maintained her composure. "I'm not talking about small social disappointments. I'm talking about skin rashes, loss of appetite, isolation." "It sounds like a typical case of adolescent hypersensitivity," replied Cynthia, closing the folder. "I suggest giving it time. If the physical symptoms persist, consult a pediatrician. As for the behavior, we're entering the final exam period. A little stress is normal." Leaving the meeting, Patricia felt diminished and ignored. Jennifer accompanied her to the parking lot. "Don't give up," said the teacher with determination in her eyes. "I've known Cynthia for years. She always protects the school's interests first." "What do you think happened?" asked Patricia, her voice trembling with concern. Jennifer shook her head. "I don't know, but I think we should try to find out more about that weekend. Maybe other girls who were there." Patricia nodded, grateful to have at least one ally. They exchanged phone numbers and promised to stay in touch. At home, she decided to try a direct approach with Lisa. She waited for her to finish her homework and sat beside her in the living room, turning off the television. "We need to talk, honey." Lisa hunched her shoulders as if trying to make herself smaller. "About what?" "About you. About how you've been different since that weekend at Isabella's house. I'm worried." "You don't need to worry. I'm fine," she answered automatically, without looking into her mother's eyes. "Lisa, I saw the spots on your stomach. I saw how you barely touch your food. I know something is wrong." The girl remained silent, her eyes fixed on her own hands. Patricia tried another approach. "What happened in that water?" she asked softly, remembering the drawing mentioned by Jennifer. Lisa abruptly raised her head, eyes wide. "How do you know about that?" "I know it has something to do with water. With the pool, maybe, or something else?" It was in that water," murmured Lisa, her voice almost inaudible. "What water, honey? Tell me, please. I just want to help you." Lisa seemed to be fighting an internal battle. Her lower lip trembled. "Nobody believes it. Isabella said it was normal, that they were expensive salts." "Are we talking about the hot tub?" tried Patricia, connecting the information. "Was there something wrong with the water?" I tried to say something. It was strange, with a different smell, but they laughed, said I wasn't used to luxury things. Patricia felt a wave of anger, not directed at her daughter, but at the situation, at the adults who should have taken care of these children. "Why didn't you call me? I would have gone to pick you up." "I didn't want to ruin everything. I thought I was being silly," replied Lisa, her voice breaking. "Then I got a fever and the spots appeared. It burns, Mum, and my stomach hurts." Patricia hugged her, feeling her daughter's fragile body tremble. "We're going to solve this, okay? Tomorrow we'll go to the doctor." Lisa pulled away, her eyes suddenly frightened. "No, nobody will believe me. The coordinator already said I'm exaggerating. And Isabella will be angry. She'll tell everyone I'm a snob." "Lisa, this is serious. Your health comes first." The girl stood up abruptly. "You don't understand. Nobody understands. It's already hard being the scholarship kid, the girl who doesn't have a dad, who doesn't travel during vacations. If I make a fuss about the Walker's hot tub, I'll become a joke. It's not making a fuss, Lisa. It's taking care of your health. It's easy for you to say. You're not the one who has to go to that school every day." The discussion escalated, with Patricia trying to stay calm while Lisa became increasingly agitated, until in a moment of pure frustration, the girl shouted with tears streaming down her face, "Nobody listens to me, not even you." Those words hit Patricia like a punch. Her daughter, always so contained, so rational, was falling apart in front of her. It wasn't just about skin rashes or physical discomfort. It was about being silenced, ignored, about having her perception of reality questioned by everyone around her. "I'm listening to you now," said Patricia, lowering her voice and approaching again. "And I believe you, every word." Lisa stared at her, surprised, tears still flowing. "Really? Really? And we're going to find out what happened. Together, I promise." That night, after Lisa finally fell asleep, Patricia sat in the kitchen with a notebook, writing down everything she knew so far. The rashes, the symptoms, the behavioral changes, the mention of the hot tub, the strange water, the expensive salts, the defensive reaction of the coordinator at the Walker name. There were missing pieces in this puzzle, but one thing was clear. Her daughter had been exposed to something potentially dangerous that weekend, and the system around her was more interested in protecting reputations than in discovering the truth. Patricia closed the notebook, a renewed determination taking shape inside her. If the school wasn't willing to help, if society preferred to ignore it, then she would fight alone. For her daughter. For the truth. For Lisa's right to be heard and taken seriously. The next morning, Patricia called work to let them know she would need to take the day off for family reasons. She scheduled an appointment with Dr. Richard, a private pediatrician who worked at an office downtown. It was an extra expense that would weigh on the month's budget, but Lisa's health couldn't wait. The waiting room was almost empty when they arrived. Lisa sat hunched in the chair, wearing a long-sleeved shirt despite the morning heat. When they were called, Patricia noticed her daughter's discomfort at having to enter the doctor's office. Dr. Richard was a man in his 50s, with a calmness that inspired confidence. He listened attentively as Patricia related the changes in Lisa's behavior and the physical symptoms she had noticed. "And you think this started after this weekend at her friend's house?" he asked, looking kindly at Lisa. The girl nodded almost imperceptibly. "Lisa, I'll need to examine you to better understand what's happening. Your mom can stay here the whole time, okay?" Reluctantly, Lisa allowed the examination. The doctor carefully observed the reddish spots on her stomach and back, asked questions about pain, discomfort, intestinal changes. He measured her temperature, which was slightly above normal, and examined her throat. "I notice a mild inflammation in the mucous membranes," commented the doctor, making notes. "And these spots are consistent with a dermal reaction to some irritant. There's also abdominal swelling that suggests fluid retention." "What could have caused this?" asked Patricia, anxious. "Hard to pinpoint without more tests. It could be an allergic reaction, a food intolerance, or exposure to some irritant substance. I'll order some blood and urine tests to rule out more serious infections." Lisa, who until then had been quiet, spoke in a low voice. "It was the hot tub water. It had a strange smell and made my skin burn." The doctor looked at her with interest. "Hot tub? That's relevant. Pool and spa waters can contain various chemicals for treatment, and if they're not in the right proportions, they can cause irritations like these. Mrs. Zelda, the lady who works there, said the hot tub wasn't good," continued Lisa, gaining confidence as she saw the doctor taking her seriously. "She said she had already told the owner, but nobody listened to her." Dr. Richard nodded, thoughtful. "Interesting, I'll make a note about that. It could be a reaction to excess chlorine, or perhaps some imbalance in the water's pH. He wrote orders for tests and medication to relieve the inflammation symptoms. Come back as soon as you have the results. And Lisa, avoid pools and hot tubs for now, okay?" On the way to the laboratory, Patricia noticed that Lisa seemed lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Someone had finally listened to her, taken her perceptions seriously. "See? It wasn't your imagination," said Patricia, affectionately squeezing her daughter's hand. "But what now?" asked Lisa. "The coordinator won't believe it, and Isabella's dad is like super important. We'll solve it one step at a time. First your health, then we'll deal with the rest." While waiting for the test results, Patricia received a call from Jennifer. The teacher's voice sounded tense. "Patricia, something happened that you need to know. Walker Cosmetics just announced a significant donation to the school's technology program. We're talking millions. There was even a ceremony this morning with Edward Walker and the board." Patricia felt a knot in her stomach. Convenient coincidence. Worse than that. Right after the ceremony, Cynthia convened a meeting with the teachers. She said we need to avoid excessive emotional involvement with students and that family issues should be treated with due professional distance. Was that directed at you? Not explicitly, but the message was clear. Afterwards, she called me in private and questioned my institutional loyalty. Patricia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of what they were facing. They're closing the doors. Exactly. And there's more. I heard rumors that I'm not the first to raise concerns about the Walker family. Last year, a substitute teacher was dismissed after questioning Edward's behavior at a school event. This was bigger than Patricia had initially imagined. It wasn't just about a poorly maintained hot tub, but about power, influence, and the culture of silence that protected them. What can we do? She asked, suddenly feeling small in the face of what they were up against. Continue seeking medical answers. Document everything. And maybe we should look for other families who have had contact with the Walkers. The conversation was interrupted when Lisa came out of the laboratory bathroom with the urine sample for the test. Patricia quickly said goodbye to Jennifer, promising to stay in touch. The following days were tense. Lisa returned to school, but the environment had changed. Isabella and her group kept their distance, and whispers circulated through the hallways. Coordinator Cynthia began observing Lisa with a critical eye during breaks. Jennifer tried to offer discreet support, but it was evident that she herself was under surveillance. The test results arrived: moderate inflammation, alterations in leukocytes compatible with immunological response to an irritant agent, signs of mild dehydration. Nothing conclusive, but enough to confirm that something had indeed affected Lisa's system. One afternoon, while organizing the medical documents, Patricia received an unexpected message. It was from an unknown number. My name is Regina Sanchez. I worked as a housekeeper at the Walker's house until 3 weeks ago. We need to talk about the hot tub, not over the phone. Patricia's heart raced. She replied, setting up a meeting at a coffee shop downtown, far from the neighborhood where the Walkers had influence. Regina was a woman in her 40s, graying hair tied in a severe bun, and eyes that carried the weight of someone who had seen more than she would like. She arrived punctually, dressed simply but with dignity, constantly looking over her shoulder. I worked for the Walkers for 8 years, she began, after initial greetings. I saw many things in that house, things I wish I hadn't seen. About the hot tub? Asked Patricia, trying to get straight to the point. Regina nodded. It started about 6 months ago. They installed a new system, very expensive, imported. But from the beginning, it had problems. The water would have a strange smell, kind of metallic. The technician would come, tinker, say everything was fine, but the problem would come back. And nobody did anything about it? Mr. Walker doesn't like to admit mistakes, especially when he spent a fortune on something. Mrs. Walker tried to convince him to close the hot tub until they resolved the problem, but he said it was fussiness, that he wasn't going to waste the investment. Patricia felt a chill. And they knew it could be dangerous. Regina hesitated, her gaze lowered. 2 weeks before Isabella's party, the babysitter of the neighbor's youngest son got sick after using the hot tub. She had a strong allergic reaction, needed to go to the hospital. Mr. Walker paid all the medical expenses and gave a bonus to the family to keep quiet. My God, murmured Patricia, and they still kept using it? He ordered an increase in the amount of chlorine and other products, said that would solve it. But it only made it worse. I started questioning, insisting they call real specialists. That's when they fired me. Restructuring of staff, they said officially. Patricia was taking frantic notes. Why are you telling me this now? Regina took a sip of coffee, her hands slightly trembling. Because I heard your daughter got sick, and that the school is covering it all up. It's not fair. How many more children will get hurt before someone does something? Would you testify about this, formally? Fear crossed Regina's face. I don't know. I signed a confidentiality agreement when I left, and Mr. Walker has a lot of influence in this town. I couldn't get another job. I understand, said Patricia, although part of her wanted to beg. Thank you for coming. There's one more thing, added Regina, lowering her voice even more. There are videos of the party. Mr. Walker always records everything that happens on the property. Security cameras, if you could get access to those images. Before she could finish, Regina noticed someone entering the coffee shop and turned pale. I need to go, I'm sorry. She stood up abruptly and left, leaving her coffee half finished. Patricia looked at her notes, her mind racing. She had more pieces of the puzzle now, but was still far from a complete picture, and the forces against her seemed to grow each day. The following week, another blow. Jennifer was removed from the school. The official justification mentioned behavior incompatible with the educational environment and breach of internal protocols. The real reason, as Jennifer explained to Patricia over the phone, was having publicly defended the need to investigate Lisa's case during a teachers' meeting. "They're silencing me," said Jennifer, her voice choked with indignation. "But I won't give up. I have contacts on the Child Protection Board. A friend, Miriam, is a counselor. I've already talked to her about the case. Do you think she can help us? She's going to try to visit the school tomorrow, officially for a routine check." But when Miriam arrived at Horizon Academy the next day, she was barred at the entrance. The administration claimed that external visits needed to be scheduled weeks in advance, citing security protocols. Meanwhile, Lisa was facing her own silent hell in the school corridors. Isabella had spread among classmates that Lisa was problematic and ungrateful, that she had invented being sick to get attention. The teachers, alerted by the administration, treated any complaint from the girl with veiled distrust. At home, alone at night, Lisa finally broke down in her mother's arms. "Why doesn't anyone believe me? Why are they treating me like I'm the one who's wrong?" Patricia hugged her tightly, swallowing her own tears, because sometimes the world protects those with power, even when they're wrong. But that doesn't mean we should give up on the truth. That night, after Lisa fell asleep, Patricia made a decision. If the educational system was failing to protect her daughter, if the normal channels were blocked by the Walkers' influence, it was time to seek help elsewhere. With trembling hands, she picked up the phone and dialed the number she had researched earlier. "Juvenile and Family Court, good evening. My name is Patricia Almeida. I need to file a formal complaint about a case of negligence that affected the health of my 12-year-old daughter." As she detailed what had happened to the attendant, Patricia knew she was crossing a line of no return. She was openly challenging one of the most powerful families in Lakeside, risking her reputation, perhaps even her job. But looking at the room where Lisa slept, restless with nightmares she shouldn't have, she knew she had no choice. Her daughter's voice echoed in her mind. "Nobody listens to me, not even you." Now, Patricia was determined to ensure that everyone would listen, even if it meant facing alone the walls of silence erected by money and power. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us what city you're watching from. We'll continue. The formal complaint set in motion a slow but powerful mechanism. 3 days later, Patricia received a call from Judge Helen Vasquez of the Lakeside Juvenile and Family Court. With a firm but gentle voice, the magistrate explained that, due to the nature of the complaint and the involvement of minors, she had decided to personally take on the case. "Mrs. Almeida, we'll need detailed statements, medical reports, and any other evidence that can help us understand exactly what happened," explained the judge. "I'll also order complete medical examinations for your daughter at University Hospital under the supervision of Counselor Miriam Santos." Patricia felt for the first time in weeks that she was no longer alone in this battle. "Thank you, Your Honor. I'll do whatever is necessary. I should warn you," continued Helen, her tone becoming more serious, "that cases involving influential figures like the Walkers can become complicated. There will be pressure, perhaps even attempts to discredit you and your daughter. Are you prepared for that?" The question hung in the air for a few seconds. Patricia thought of Lisa, how she now flinched when she heard Isabella's name, the night she woke up crying from nightmares. "I am, Your Honor. For my daughter. I'm prepared for anything." The next morning, Patricia and Lisa went to University Hospital for the examinations ordered by the judge. Counselor Miriam, a middle-aged black woman with keen eyes and a welcoming smile, greeted them at the entrance. "You're doing the right thing," she said, as she guided mother and daughter through the hospital corridors. "I know it's difficult, but remember, you're not the accusers here. You're the victims seeking justice." The examination process was exhaustive. Blood collection, dermatological exams, gastroenterological evaluation, allergy tests, even a psychological assessment to document the emotional impact of the episode. Lisa faced it all with a mixture of resignation and relief. Each exam was confirmation that her experience was being taken seriously. While they awaited the results, News of the investigation began to circulate in Lakeside. It was subtle at first. Curious looks at the supermarket, conversations that went silent when Patricia entered the waiting room at the clinic where she worked. Then came the phone calls. The first was from the principal of Horizon Academy, Dr. August Miller, Cynthia's husband. With a controlled voice that barely disguised his irritation, he expressed his concern about the misunderstanding and suggested an informal conversation to resolve the situation without involving third parties. "There is no misunderstanding, Dr. August," Patricia replied firmly. "My daughter was exposed to unsanitary conditions that affected her health, and when we tried to address the issue through the appropriate channels, we were silenced. Now the case is in the hands of justice." The second call was more direct. Edward Walker himself, his smooth voice distilling a veiled threat in each syllable. "Patricia, we're all reasonable adults. Accidents happen. Children sometimes exaggerate. If your daughter had some allergic reaction, I sincerely regret it, and I'm willing to cover any medical expenses. But taking this to court, well, that could have consequences that none of us wants." Patricia felt her heart race but kept her voice firm. "Mr. Walker, the case is already underway. I suggest you direct your concerns to your lawyer." There was an icy silence before Edward responded, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." The line went dead, and Patricia realized her hands were shaking. She needed a few minutes to compose herself before Lisa returned from the shower. The third call was the most unexpected. Marcy Graham, Caroline's mother, wanted to meet her in person. They chose a cafe far from downtown, where it would be unlikely to encounter acquaintances. Marcy arrived nervously, constantly looking over her shoulder, just as Regina had done. "My daughter also got sick after that weekend," she confessed in a low voice as soon as they sat down. "Nothing as serious as your Lisa, but she had a fever, red spots on her arms. The pediatrician said it could be a virus, but you suspect it was the same thing," Patricia completed. Marcy nodded. "Caroline told me about the hot tub, said the water had a strange smell, that her skin burned afterward. But when she found out the case was going to court, she begged me not to get involved. Why? My husband works for a Walker Cosmetics subsidiary. Our mortgage, the family's health insurance, Caroline's school, everything depends on that job." Marcy wiped away a furtive tear. "I admire your courage, Patricia, really, but I can't risk my family's future." Patricia wanted to argue, to say that by remaining silent, they were allowing other children to be exposed to the same danger, but she saw the genuine fear in Marcy's eyes and understood. The Walkers' power extended far beyond the walls of their mansion. "If you change your mind," she said simply, sliding a card with her phone number across the table, "I'll be here." 2 days before the preliminary hearing, the results of Lisa's complete examinations arrived. Dr. Matthew Rivers, the doctor responsible for the case at University Hospital, called Patricia in for a meeting. "The results are conclusive," he explained, showing the reports. "Lisa shows clear signs of exposure to an irritant agent, likely chemical. The skin lesions, inflammation of the mucous membranes, and gastrointestinal symptoms are consistent with direct contact with water contaminated by improper levels of chlorine and possibly other compounds." "Could this have been caused by the hot tub?" asked Patricia, though she already knew the answer. "It's the most likely explanation considering the patient's account. Poorly treated hot tub waters can contain high levels of bacteria and fungi. To combat this, chemicals are sometimes added in excess, creating a toxic environment. It's like trading one problem for another, equally dangerous one." The reports were attached to the case. On the eve of the hearing, as Patricia was explaining to Lisa how the procedure would be, trying to prepare her without scaring her, the phone rang again. It was Jennifer, her voice breathless with excitement. "Patricia, you won't believe it. Remember Brian, the 9th grade student who always carries a camera? He was in the school garden today, photographing birds for a science project, when he overheard a conversation between 2 older students. The brother of one of them, Philip Martin, was at the Walker mansion 2 weeks ago for a corporate event and also got sick after using the hot tub. And will they testify? Even better. The boy's mother, Dr. Claudia Martin, is a public health doctor at the Municipal Health Department. When her son told her what happened, she opened an internal investigation. They were collecting more data before acting, but with your case coming to light, she decided to speed up the process." Patricia felt a wave of hope. "Will she testify at the hearing?" She'll do better than that. She'll present a preliminary technical report. She's already in contact with Judge Helen. That night, Patricia could barely sleep. The next morning, she wore her best outfit, a simple navy blue suit she kept for special occasions, and helped Lisa get ready. The girl chose a floral dress and asked to let her hair down, which she normally kept tied back. "I want them to really see me," she explained, with a maturity that tugged at Patricia's heart. The Lakeside Courthouse was an imposing building downtown. In the lobby, Patricia and Lisa met Miriam, who led them to the room where the hearing would take place. On the way, they passed Edward and Elizabeth Walker, accompanied by 3 men in suits whom Patricia presumed were lawyers. Edward gave her an icy look, but it was Elizabeth who surprised her. There was something in her eyes, a gleam that seemed almost like guilt. The hearing room was smaller than Patricia had imagined, with an oval table in the center and chairs arranged around it. Judge Helen was already seated at the head, leafing through documents. To her right, a middle-aged woman with a severe expression was introduced as Dr. Claudia Martin from the Health Department. On the other side, the Walkers' lawyers were organizing papers in their folders. The session began with legal formalities. Helen explained that this was a preliminary hearing to determine if there were sufficient elements for a more in-depth investigation. Each party would have a chance to present their initial arguments and evidence. The Walkers' lawyers went first. With a smooth voice and studied gestures, the oldest of them, Dr. Maurice Paxton, argued that this was clearly a regrettable misunderstanding. "My clients maintain their property to the highest standards of safety and hygiene," he stated. "Young Lisa may have had an individual allergic reaction to some component of the imported therapeutic salts used in the hot tub. Regrettable, without a doubt, but it does not indicate negligence or irregularity." He presented quality certificates for the products used, maintenance records signed by a specialized company, and photos of the property showing impeccable facilities. Finally, he insinuated that Patricia might be exaggerating the situation for personal or financial reasons. When it was Patricia's turn, she felt her throat go dry. She looked at Lisa, who gave her a small, encouraging smile, and began to speak. She described the changes in her daughter's behavior, the physical symptoms, the frustrated attempts to get help through the school. She presented the medical reports, both from Dr. Richard and the more detailed ones from University Hospital. "I'm not here for money or revenge," she concluded, looking directly at the judge. "I'm here because my daughter suffered, and continues to suffer, the consequences of negligence that could have been avoided. And I fear that other children may go through the same if nothing is done." Next, it was Lisa's turn. With an initially hesitant voice that gradually gained firmness, she related her experience that weekend, how she noticed something strange about the water, how she tried to alert others but was discouraged, how she felt immediate burning and then developed fever and spots. "I did tell an adult," she said, briefly looking at Elizabeth Walker, who averted her gaze. "I said the water was strange, but nobody listened to me." The last to speak was Dr. Claudia Martin. With the authority of someone who knew the subject deeply, she presented her preliminary report. Samples of the water from the Walkers' hot tub, collected after an anonymous complaint, Patricia strongly suspected Regina, revealed alarming levels of bacteria and fungi incompatible with safe use. More seriously, the levels of chlorine and other chemicals were far above the permitted levels in an apparent attempt to mask the bacteriological problem. "This combination," explained Claudia, "creates an extremely toxic environment, especially for sensitive skin like that of children. The reactions described by young Lisa are absolutely consistent with exposure to water in these conditions." A heavy silence fell over the room when she finished. Edward Walker, red with anger, was furiously whispering with his lawyers. Elizabeth kept her gaze down, her hands trembling in her lap. Judge Helen observed everyone for a long moment before speaking. "Based on the evidence presented, I order a complete and immediate sanitary investigation of the Walker residence facilities, especially the hot tub and pool area. I also order that all persons present during the weekend in question be heard, including staff and guests." Turning to Edward, she added with a grave voice, "Mr. Walker, I strongly advise you to cooperate fully with this investigation. Obstruction of justice in cases involving the health of minors is something this court treats with extreme seriousness." When the session was adjourned, Patricia hugged Lisa tightly. "You were amazing," she whispered in her daughter's ear. Lisa smiled, her eyes shining with something Patricia hadn't seen in weeks. Hope. They listened to me, Mom. Finally, someone listened to me. Leaving the room, they were approached by a reporter from the local newspaper who had obtained information about the case. Initially hesitant, Patricia decided to speak, briefly but firmly. She didn't want sensationalism, just for the truth to come out. What neither of them knew as they left the courthouse that afternoon was that the article published the next day would trigger a series of events that no one could have predicted. The toxic hot tub case, as it was dubbed by the press, was about to become much bigger than a dispute between a single mother and a powerful family. It was about to expose cracks in an entire system built to protect privileges at the expense of the safety of the most vulnerable. The article published in the Lakeside Daily the morning after the hearing was like a stone thrown into an apparently calm lake. 12-year-old girl challenges business empire after hot tub contamination, read the headline. The text, signed by journalist Deborah Alvarez, presented a detailed account of the hearing, including the medical reports and Lisa's moving testimony. By noon, the story had already been shared thousands of times on social media. Larger newspapers from Chicago began contacting Deborah, asking for more information. Phones rang incessantly at the Daily's editorial office, at the Walker's house, and even at the clinic where Patricia worked. "I didn't imagine it would cause such a stir," Patricia confessed, upon receiving another call from a TV station requesting an interview. "I thought it would just be a small note in the local newspaper." "It's the perfect combination to capture public attention," explained Jennifer, who was visiting Patricia and Lisa in their apartment. A modern David versus Goliath, a single mother and her daughter facing one of the most powerful families in the region. "People love that narrative, but that's not what we want," protested Patricia. "This isn't about creating a spectacle. It's about justice, about doing the right thing." Jennifer smiled gently. "Sometimes, Patricia, a little spectacle is exactly what justice needs to work." In the afternoon, an official statement from Walker Cosmetics announced Edward Walker's temporary removal from the CEO position to allow a transparent investigation of the alleged facts. The text, clearly drafted by a public relations team, spoke of prioritizing the company's institutional image and ensuring that the values of excellence and social responsibility continue to be Walker Cosmetics' trademark. The school, in turn, maintained an obstinate silence, limiting itself to informing that judicial matters involving students are treated with due confidentiality. But in the corridors and classrooms, the case was the only topic. The spotlight makes it much harder for them to sweep everything under the rug. And indeed, the spotlights were getting increasingly intense. Teachers tried, without much success, to prevent discussions, while students divided between those who supported Lisa and those who defended Isabella. Isabella herself didn't show up at school that week. According to rumors, she was on medical leave due to stress. Some girls who previously were part of her inner circle began to distance themselves, fearful of being associated with the scandal. The final reports of the sanitary investigation, released 10 days after the hearing, were devastating for the Walkers. The hot tub water contained alarming levels of Pseudomonas aeruginosa and Staphylococcus bacteria, as well as various fungi. The chemicals used in the treatment were in concentrations far above what was permitted, creating a toxic cocktail that, in the words of the report, represents a serious health risk, especially for children and people with sensitive immune systems. More seriously, the report pointed out that similar problems had been detected 6 months earlier during a routine inspection, and that those responsible had been notified but had not taken the necessary corrective measures. Instead, they had merely increased the doses of chemicals, worsening the situation. "This constitutes conscious negligence," declared Dr. Claudia Martin in a press conference. "It wasn't an accident or ignorance, but a deliberate decision to ignore known risks." The repercussion was immediate. Walker Cosmetics shares fell more than 15% in 2 days. Business partners began to review contracts. Celebrities who endorsed the brand's products expressed concern on social media. The empire built by Edward Walker over decades showed its first cracks. For Lisa, however, life continued with its daily challenges. Although the medical treatment was gradually taking effect, the spots were beginning to disappear, the gastrointestinal symptoms were diminishing, the emotional impact persisted. Returning to school was particularly difficult. "Everyone looks at me differently now," she commented to her mother after her first day back. "Some like I'm a hero, others like I've committed a crime. Nobody sees me as just Lisa anymore." Patricia hugged her daughter, feeling the weight of the public exposure they had faced. "This will pass, honey. People have short memories for scandals, but long ones for courage. One day they'll remember you not as the hot tub girl, but as someone who had the courage to tell the truth, even when it was difficult." In the third week after the hearing, when the dust was beginning to settle, Patricia received an unexpected call. It was Elizabeth Walker, asking to meet her in private. They chose a discreet cafe on the outskirts of town. Elizabeth arrived without makeup, her hair tied back in a simple ponytail, almost unrecognizable without her usual glamour. She seemed to have aged years in weeks. "I wanted to apologize personally," she said, after ordering a coffee she didn't touch. "Not just for what happened to Lisa, but for not acting when I should have." Patricia observed her in silence, trying to decipher if this was another public relations strategy or genuine remorse. "I knew about the problems with the hot tub," continued Elizabeth, her voice breaking. "I tried to convince Edward to close it until it was completely safe. But he has difficulty admitting mistakes. He's always been that way." "Why are you telling me this now?" asked Patricia. Elizabeth sighed. "Because I'm tired of living in a world of appearances. The marriage, the company, the perfect parties, all a carefully constructed facade. When I saw your daughter at that hearing, so young and yet so brave to speak the truth, I realized how much I had lost myself in this charade." She then revealed that she had filed for divorce and was fully cooperating with the investigations. "Isabella is with my mother in Chicago. She's confused. She grew up believing that the Walker name opened all doors, solved all problems. This is the first time she's facing the real consequences of something." Patricia felt a mixture of compassion and justice being served. "I hope she learns from this, that everyone learns." "I want you to know," said Elizabeth before saying goodbye, "that I've already arranged a fund to cover all of Lisa's medical costs, present and future. It's not an attempt to buy silence, just the minimum I can do to repair part of the damage caused." Life followed its course. Edward Walker was formally removed from the company presidency by unanimous decision of the board of directors. The investigation expanded to other properties of the family, revealing similar patterns of negligence with safety and health. Horizon Academy, pressured by public opinion and parents of students, announced a complete restructuring of the administration, starting with the replacement of coordinator Cynthia. For Jennifer, redemption came. Not only was she reinstated to the faculty, but she received a formal apology and a promotion to educational coordinator. "Now we can really build an educational environment that values the voice of each student," she declared in her first meeting with the teachers. One afternoon, while organizing documents at home, Patricia found the crumpled note that Lisa had dropped at school. "We shouldn't have gotten in." 4 simple words that had triggered so much. She sat observing the paper for a long time, thinking about how small acts of courage could generate big waves of change. Lisa entered the room, interrupting her thoughts. "Mom, Teacher Jennifer called. She wants to know if we can participate in a discussion circle at school on Friday about the importance of listening to children and adolescents." Patricia smiled, putting the note in a drawer. "What do you think? Do you want to participate?" Lisa pondered for a moment, her eyes reflecting a new maturity. "I do. If my story can help other people to be heard, it's worth telling." In the months that followed, Lisa and Patricia's story inspired concrete changes. The case led to the creation of a more rigorous protocol for sanitary inspection in private spaces used for events with minors. Horizon Academy implemented an active listening channel where students could report concerns without fear of retaliation. Other schools in the region began to adopt similar practices. For Patricia, the greatest impact was personal. Her relationship with Lisa, always close, gained new layers of trust and mutual respect. The quiet, reserved girl began to express herself more, to trust in her own voice. "You know what I learned from all this?" commented Lisa one night while helping her mother prepare dinner. "That being truly heard is one of the most important rights that exist." Patricia nodded, feeling her eyes water. "And that the truth, no matter how difficult, always finds a way to come to the surface." One autumn afternoon, almost a year after the hot tub incident, Patricia received an unexpected letter. It was from Regina, the Walkers' former housekeeper, writing from Oregon, where she had found a new job. "I followed your struggle through the newspapers," the letter said. "I wanted you to know that your courage inspired many of us, who for years felt silenced by power and money. Some battles seem impossible to win, but you proved that when we fight for the truth, we are never really alone." That same night, Patricia found Lisa sitting on the apartment balcony, observing the city lights. Adolescence was beginning to draw its contours on her still childish face, but her eyes maintained that unique mixture of sweetness and determination. "What are you thinking about?" asked Patricia, sitting beside her daughter. "About how things change," replied Lisa. "Last year at this time I was so afraid to speak, to not be believed. Now I understand that my voice matters." Patricia smiled, putting her arm around her daughter's shoulders. It always mattered. It just needed the world to be ready to listen. The two stayed there in comfortable silence, watching night fall over Lakeside. There was no heroic ending, no spectacular revenge. There was learning, responsibility, and above all, listening. Patricia, upon realizing that her daughter was silently screaming, did what many avoid. She listened. Teacher Jennifer, even when removed, inspired other mothers to notice things they previously ignored. And Lisa, little by little, rediscovered the smile that had always been her right. She didn't understand everything that happened, but she understood the essentials. Her pain mattered. Her voice mattered. And finally, the world was listening.